I had my father say to me this morning, I work through weakness. I kind of chuckled. That's all, I'm not too far from that. I'm willing. Read Paul who said that. When I'm weak, I'm strong. That's just the reversal of what the world says. They want you to gain some kind of strength, mentally, emotionally, physically. And then you say, here I am, Lord, I'm ready to serve you. And he has to frustrate you. Your mental, emotional, and physical strength. And those moments of weakness, he uses you. And you're amazed. How can he use me? I was so weak in that situation. Mentally, I was exhausted. Emotionally, I was rattled. Physical strength, my God. I'm 78 years of age. That has diminished. Good. I have you right where I want you. It's my love for you. He said, boy, that's the strangest way to love somebody, according to the world's idea. Bring them to weakness and manifest your strength to them. Powerful. I can recall, over the course of my life, those moments when I was my weakest, he manifested his strength in mighty ways. I remember one time, over 50 years ago, in boot camp, when I joined the military, I was running from God. I was mentally, emotionally, and I found out real quick how physically out of shape I was. Somehow, through all that weakness, God manifested his strength. I remember the first forced march that we had. It was raining, there was sleet on the ground, and he put me, my drill sergeant put me as a squad leader. So you were the first in line. Everyone's following your pace. So you couldn't lose pace. You had to keep it up. I remember bawling my eyes out as I'm running. They couldn't see me. In that rainstorm, that sleet and coldness, I was stupid enough to go into the military in February, Fort Dix, New Jersey. God was it cold. And I'm bawling my eyes out when no one's seeing me. He said, look up the road. I saw a cross. He said, run to the cross. So I did. He kept me going. Then there was a time I remember I got my assignment. I was scheduled for Fubai, Vietnam. But that didn't scare you, nothing would. Bad place to go. And he overcame my fears. His true love cast out the fear. And when I got there, they said, this is strange. They changed your orders. You're not going to Fubai. We're sending you down to the furthest post in Vietnam. We're sending you down to Can Tho, an air base. They said, we don't know why they did that. I said, I don't know either. I didn't know at the time. I was mentally, emotionally, physically unprepared for that moment. But he, in his mercy and grace, prepared me and saved me from Vietnam. Then when my tour ended in Vietnam, he gave me a choice. I could go from there to Thailand, or I could go back stateside, or I could go to Germany. I chose to go to Germany. At that time, Neil Diamond had a song out called I Am. Another place, another grace would save me. I was still running from my problems. That's why I didn't want to come back stateside. And I had enough of Asia. So I chose to go to Germany. At this point, I hesitate sharing a lot of things of personal nature. knowing there would be those who use it against you to judge you. My running from God, my running from my problems. Simply said I was going through a divorce. Not only was I running from her, I was running from my father. He showed me mercy and grace. Mercy, he held back what I deserved. And in his grace, he gave me what I didn't deserve. His constant love. As the psalmist said, though I make my bed in hell, thou art there. Where can we run? Left, right, up, down. He's always there. You have to find that out. When he said, lo, I am with you always, he meant it. Once I received Christ, way back then, I had to learn that. To all my stupidity, and going to Romans 8:28, we worked it all to his good. Those that love him, and according to his eternal purposes. I had no idea back then how he was going to work out this whole situation, but he did. My stupidity, and thinking I would join the army to save my marriage, destroyed my marriage. My human efforts failed, but he worked it all to a good. Without my going into the military, and by his grace I got in there, and it's a wonder I passed boot camp, let alone going to AIT, where I had to learn communications, teletype. I ended up in the Army Security Agency, ASA. And that got me out of a lot of duties that most soldiers would have. He gave me a top secret clearance and special attention that I didn't deserve, yet I got it. That got me through Vietnam, he got me through Germany, he got me back home. While I was in Germany, I met my wife, Irene, who's German. That's another whole story of his mercy and grace and him saving her and me. Beautiful. I usually share that on a one-to-one basis, not over World Wide Web, because there'll be those out there who would judge you. So moving on. When I processed out of the military, I was at Fort Dix, New Jersey, processing out. And that night I was at a bus stop, wondering how I was going to get home from there. In a rainstorm. I'm bawling my eyes out again. I was no longer a soldier. My divorce was finalized. I lost the respect of my family, my wife, and my kids. And I had a young bride processing out with me, flying from Germany to Kennedy Airport, and I was stuck down here in Fort Dix, New Jersey. I couldn't get up to her. My sister in Long Island picked up my wife to be at Kennedy Airport. And my other sister from South Jersey came up to Fort Dix and picked me up. God brought us together. Another place, another grace. I remember the first job I got. I had security in my mind, so I ended up as a security officer at a hospital. And another place, another grace. An individual saw me. He said, "You look pretty sharp. How would you like to try to get a job down at Nuclear Power Plant?" I said, well, yeah, that sounds great. He says, come on down. Sign up. We could use you down there, nuclear power plant. They were in their construction phase at that time. So I transferred from that job from the hospital down to a nuclear power plant. Amazing how Father healed my emotions and my mental condition and physical strength. He became all that for me again. I remember going through that maze of wired scaffolding, about 4 levels through that nuclear power plant. I had to go up and down stairs. Sparks flying over your head and trying to find key boxes to put in, you punch your clock as you did your security route throughout that construction phase of that nuclear power plant. It's amazing that I could even do that and remember it all. I remember it was during the winter months again, and you had like 3 foot of snow. And many of those keys were out to what they call pump houses. And you had to walk out a quarter of a mile to a pump house and punch your key and turn around and come back. And I went through 5 or 6 different types of boots, because every pair I had, doing all that walking, would give me blisters. I mean, sometimes these blisters got real bad. Yeah, I found the right pair of boots. Powerful. Then another place, another grace would save me. I had military benefits I didn't realize. And it wasn't the best paying job as a security officer in that nuclear power plant. And I needed money. So they had me sign up for one of their courses, which gave me an extra $1,000. Another place, another grace. So my mistake of the past of joining the military had a benefit. Later on, going through several other jobs after that job ended, I was led to get into Department of Correction, working as a correction officer. Apart from my military and that mistake, got working into a good, apart from that military, I wouldn't have had an extra 5 points that would take this weak mind of mine and give me the grace of 5 extra points to help me pass the test to get into the Department of Corrections. And then him working with me, traveling 60 miles to Bordentown, New Jersey. Their correction officers there in Bordentown, that facility there, which was a dungeon of a prison. Young kids, me not really knowing what I'm doing, another place, another grace. He worked it out. Worked it all to a good. Let me at this point wrap this up. It's about 14 minutes long already. Probably lost a few people. Our interest span is rather short. So, Father, what else should I add to this to conclude this? Let me make this rather short. I spent a year up in Bordentown, that correctional facility, that youth correctional facility. And I mean, it was a dungeon of a prison. I learned a lot the hard way. And I mean, I tell you, it was a lonely time, traveling that distance and being on their second shift. They said they could transfer me from that prison down to a prison that's down here in South Jersey, closer to my home. So I prayed about it. They said they would work it out. I had to put at least a year in there before I could make the transfer. Now I'm sitting there one night, snowstorm again. I'm doing some of the outer fence checks of that prison, one of the jobs they had. And I'm out there, bawling my eyes out again, wishing I could be off that job, wanting to quit at times, but hanging in there. God give me the grace to do that. So I'm sitting out there saying, Father, can you get me out of here? They said I might have to spend another year and a half there. Well, they worked it out, so I got out of there in a year's time. But others got stuck up there who were from South Jersey. By God's grace, He worked it out again for me. Now I'm sitting out there, bawling my eyes out one night doing these fence checks. Cold, rainy, snowy. I'm saying, how do you cause all things to work to the good? You said you work all things to the good, and I'm hollering at God. Talking out loud, though, nobody around could see me. And I'm sitting there, I hear this humming noise up in the sky. In the midst of the snow and the rain, the clouds, here comes this drizzle. A Goodyear blimp. And it's flashing on that Goodyear blimp. Goodyear. It's God's answer to me. He said it would be a good year. And I was out there in a year's time, but others had to stay like 14 months. Another place, another grace. And one more and I'll wrap this up. I finally get transferred down to Bayside. It's another prison down here in South Jersey. Now I'm sitting there saying the same thing, Father, why am I doing in this kind of a job? What was your purpose, eternal purpose in there, which would require another whole video about that. The eternal purpose of my being involved in this specific job, Department of Corrections. So here I am again, in doubt, questioning if I made a mistake getting involved in this kind of a job. I had a perimeter patrol that day. You drive in a van around the perimeter, you check the fence lines. So I'm pulling up front to get relief. And I'm sitting there complaining to God. And He says, look at the stone on the wall there. They had a stone when they built that prison. They built it in 1967. He said, what does that mean to you? It's like a flashback. Back in 1967, young babe in Christ, from a Baptist church, and we had the opportunity to go preach at the farm facility of this very correctional facility there in Bayside. It was a satellite to Bayside, their main prison. It was like a farm. And I had the opportunity there, and I preached at that farm. And God said to me back then, one day you'll be in this work, this line of work. I thought maybe it'd be as a chaplain, but it wasn't. I would be a correctional officer. I mean, it's confirmation He gives you. So they built that in 1967. And believe this or not, they gave us a grand tour when we went to that farm facility. They gave us a tour of that facility they were building out back. And I walked that construction site, and I walked up to the very unit I would run for 22 years at Bayside. C unit, Charlie unit. That would be my position. I got to see my position. That was back in 1967. That's beautiful how God works things out. This was His calling for my life. To go through all I went through, end up as a correctional officer, not a chaplain, I mean, it's just amazing how God's hands work. So I'm looking at my own life and I'm saying, God, if you can work this in my life is very messed up. You can work it out for anyone. God will work all your life situations to His good. To those that love Him, called according to His eternal purposes. Everything works to your good. And He'll lead you in your path of His right way. There are times you wonder if here I am going through the valley of the shadow of death, Vietnam. His rod and staff, they comfort me. He prepared the table before me in the presence of my enemies. He anointed my head with oil, the mind of Christ in me. The cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy has followed me all the days of my life. And He would do the same for me, He would do for you. God bless.